Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to this first impressions walkthrough of the Tarot of Transformation by Willow Arlania and Jasmine Lee Corey. So this deck has actually been low-key on my wish list for quite a while. At one point it was probably one of my most coveted decks, but it was kind of hard to get your hands on. And at the time, I remember thinking like I eventually found a source for it in the US, and I will try to remember to have a link to that down below. But it just ended up getting backburnered, partly because it was a little trickier to get my hands on and it was going to be pretty pricey. But I did end up actually having a chance to do a deck trade. So I was able to get this deck and book in a trade. So thank you so much. You know who you are. I'm really glad that I was able to trade for these. And so I'm going to take a little trip through the cards. I have already reordered the deck, so I've taken a little bit of a peek, and I used to watch walkthroughs of this deck all the time whenever I saw one pop up. So we're going to take a little dive into these. This is, as I understand, a fairly thin cardstock, and I have felt that already. It's definitely noticeably thin, but I think it's going to be okay to work with. We will see, but we are going to take a trip through. It also comes with this, I think you have to buy it separately, but there is a full-size guidebook that comes with, or that you can order with these cards. And this is what I'm really excited to dive into because I feel like there's just a lot of depth in these cards. So I'm looking forward to taking more of a dive into the guidebook. I don't know if there's any spreads in here. Quick reference chart. Yeah, I didn't see a hint to any spreads. Let's take a quick look at the contents here. Working with the tarot, the major arcana. Yeah, I don't think there's spreads, but I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time on this today because I feel like this is going to require a bit of time to dive into the meat and potatoes of it. But I'm going to set that aside. Make sure I got all my cards out. Yeah, I did. Okay. And we are going to take a trip through the Tarot of Transformation. So I'm going to get us zoomed right in, and we're going to get, oh, that was my hand. All right, so I'm going to get us zoomed in and we will see. So one of the things that attracted me to this deck is just the softness of the artwork. So let's talk about the cardstock, guys. It is very thin. So you may remember me talking about a deck called the Manuscript of Initiations that was very thin like this. That deck I think was matte and gilded, so it felt worse somehow. But this is very flimsy cardstock. That said, because it is glossy, it does feel like it's going to actually hold up structurally well over time. It's just very thin. The other thing I did notice as I was kind of taking my first glance through the cards is that the image sizes are not even as you go through. So some of these images are wider or narrower. So the borders are not even, which could be a deal breaker for some people. But so it's not a deck I don't think that I would trim because I don't know that I'd feel very confident trimming it. But we're going to dive through. What really attracted me to this, as I said, was the artwork and the keywords or the titles on the cards. So it is meant to be, I think, a deck for growth, for personal growth work, for self-development, for transformation, as the box says. So here in the Fool, we have innocence or ignorance, and I think that's super interesting. We have this figure that's sort of looking out, and she has like a mask over her eyes or his eyes. It is actually pretty gender ambiguous. And then you have this smaller figure inside that looks a little more wild, and it's almost as if this person is tapping into their inner wild nature for good or ill. In the Magician, we have Master of Conscious Creation, and look at all these like orbs, and actually some of these look like suns. And without bringing this actually closer to my face, I'm going to try to bring it into the camera so you can see what all those orbs say, but it's actually hard for my eyes from this distance to see properly. But it does look like there are, yeah, some different sigils, or, yeah, that's really cool. I like that. It definitely gives the idea of sort of weaving or spinning one's own life. So definitely being the master of your own destiny, which I really enjoy. Feminine mysteries, intuitive wisdom. Love that keyword. And I love how this feels like this is a goddess of the universe. I love that. I just love how I love that. And it almost looks like she's lifting up this like sort of veil and letting you peek behind what's behind there. It's very intuitive artwork, which I enjoy. Queen of Life, the Earth Mother. Oh man. This reminds me, I don't mean to compare artists because obviously every artist is different, but this reminds me a little bit of Susan Seddon-Boulet's artwork. a bit, just the etherealness of it. Here we have ruling in harmony with nature and the green man for the emperor. I love this. And I love green man or horned god kind of vibes for emperor cards. I really enjoy that divine masculine energy. Taking the Hierophant off the pedestal, spiritual leaders. This is so cool to me, partly because I think a lot of times we do put anybody we perceive as leaders, spiritually or otherwise, we tend to put them on pedestals, and nobody can really hold up to that, right? Everybody's human. So I think that that can be a really tricky thing. I'm just gonna, I've got one little cord in my way. Sorry for the wiggle. Okay, I think I fixed it. There we go. But yeah, so I really like this idea of getting them off their pedestals, of seeing them as peers who have wisdom rather than people who are somehow above us, which I think is really cool. Love in the highest octave for the lovers. So very high vibrational love, pure love, love that. Ah, love, 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 love. Agent of change for the Chariot. This super works for me, and in part because of the way I personally work with and view Chariot energy. And you can get kind of a peek inside my head about all that if you take a look at my, it's a meditation that a guided meditation that I filmed for this channel quite some time ago, where I do a journey through the 7 chakras. And in one of the chakras, we do a journey through the Chariot's domain. And it's sort of chakras and major arcana overlap. It's a really cool thing that I put together. I'm really proud of it. But you can see sort of how I perceive Chariot energy in that meditation. But this definitely works with this idea of agent of change and sort of, again, choosing how you're going to shift course in your life and then following that. I love that. And again, I love this artwork. It just really pulls you in. Returning cosmic order. 8 is balance. So this is our justice card actually in this spot. So we have that idea of cosmic order and balance. I love that. I love the idea of cosmic order because again, it makes me think of karma. It makes me think of like when we're experiencing consequences of our actions, it's a return to balance. And I think that's a really cool reminder. The light of introspection for the crone. Oh, these are so beautifully titled. And I remember that this is one of the things that drew me to this initially is the titles were so on point for what the meaning of the cards is. And also just, it felt like the artwork just pulls you into that meaning. I really enjoy this card. It's interesting to me that we have this grouping of figures here. I wish this had been a more solitary figure, but we do get crone energy here from this figure. It just feels more like a teaching kind of energy rather than an introspective energy in the artwork. But I mean, it is still there. It's just, I think I would have preferred a solitary crone in this image. Flowing with change, the Wheel of Fortune. And here we have some figures who are definitely moving with the cycle, right? And you get that idea of instead of bucking against it, moving with it. And I really love that. Moving from the core for strength. Yes, this is so cool. So very much talking about, in my opinion anyways, that solar plexus confident energy in the strength card, which totally works. There's a lot of dynamic movement and confidence in this imagery. Love, love, love. Not in control, the Hanged Man. Again, so you see what I mean by these titles? I just feel like they're so good. Grieving and letting go for death. Oh, yes. Because we grieve, we don't just grieve the loss of loved ones. That is one way that we grieve. But we also grieve anytime we have to let something go that we're not ready to let go. And it can be a really painful process even when we're not grieving physical actual death. Integrating polarities, temperance. Yes, definitely. Definitely integrating polarities. This reminds me of that yin-yang energy and that concept of there's a little light in the dark and a little dark in the light. Love that. Separation from source for the devil. And this is such a good, I'm kind of gushing, but like this is a very cool way to look at devil energy, because really when we're in devil energy, we have disconnected from our highest self, right? We're not acting in accordance with our own highest ideals, with our own ethics, with our own personal boundaries for ourselves, right? And I think that really captures that. You definitely feel this person who seems very fragmented and separated. Shattering the structure, Kali for the tower. A very powerful, potent energy. And I don't think this is the only deck that has featured Kali energy for the tower, but Kali energy really works for the tower. I think it really captures that idea of tearing down structures that don't work, and a very potent, powerful energy that is definitely not to be trifled with. Guiding light, the star. I love this. It's like she's walking through a winter wilderness and she's keeping her gaze focused on that. It definitely has more of that like sort of navigational element, coming back home to yourself. I love that. Peace in the darkness, the moon card. That one's an interesting title to me because I don't see the moon as a peaceful energy. I'd be curious what the book has to say about this card, because I see the moon more as a disruptive energy, not necessarily an unpleasant energy, but definitely disruptive, like a shakeup, like a return to the wild, or facing your fears, or seeing things in shadow. So it's interesting to me, this idea of dancing in the darkness, or excuse me, peace in the darkness. Interesting that I went to dancing. That's interesting. There is dancing in the darkness within the moon, but I don't know about peace. I mean, there's a possibility that you can get there for sure. And if you engage with that energy in a really mindful and conscious way, you can certainly get to a place of peace. But I don't know that that would have been my first choice for that. The radiance of being with the sun. This super works with my personal associations for the sun card. Transcending judgment, compassion. So this is beyond judgment. Interesting here. I think this is taking the judgment card a little bit more literally than what I'm used to. I feel like I'm used to judgment being more about evolution in a way than about like literal judgment. Although that's definitely a factor of the card. It's just not the way I typically read it. But I think there's a real place in the tarot for this concept of moving beyond judgment and moving into a place of compassion. I think that's a useful message and one you can definitely work with. The multi-dimensional universe, the cosmos. This is really beautiful. I feel like this is art you would definitely or could definitely sink into. So now we're into the wands. Now, I don't know what the original ordering of the deck was. I just chose the ordering that I usually work with, which is Wands, Swords, Cups, Pentacles. But let's take a look through. And I also wanted to make note that the major arcana have these purple borders. The wands have pink. The swords have yellow. The cups have blue. And the pentacles have green. And those color associations definitely work for me. So here in the Ace of Wands, we have grounding for creativity. This is really cool to me. I wouldn't usually pick a word like grounding for a Wands card, and yet here we see somebody who's literally tapped right into the earth and is connecting to that sort of creative source energy, and I think that really works for this card. It's an interesting way to word it and depict it, but it's a really effective way, and I like that. Healing sexual energy in the Two of Wands. Now here we go totally into left field for how I usually read this card. I really see this as possibility, as perspective. So I'm really curious about the guidebook on this card. In fact, we might just take a little sneaky peek here because that does go so far away from where I normally go. So let's just see. So when we get into the Wands, I'm not going to zoom this out because I just want to take a quick look at what it has to say. Okay, so in the Two of Wands, the fire energy is expressed through the second chakra, sometimes referred to as the sexual chakra. That works. I get that. Here, the basic life force takes sexual expression. It is important to remember that sexual contact with a lover is just one way of expressing this energy. And then it goes on from there. So it is really looking at that through the lens of the second chakra, which is interesting and definitely something you can work with. It does take me a little further away from the Rider-Waite-Smith for sure, but that's okay. Three of Wands, authentic nourishment. And I think I'm starting to see a trend. I have a feeling the minor arcana deviates quite a bit and does definitely go its own way towards healing work, which would make this deck really good for doing that sort of healing type work. Opening the heart and the Four of Wands. Yeah, I remember now. So definitely we are moving sort of, I think, through the chakras if we think about it, right? So authentic nourishment would be solar plexus, and we see that in the artwork. And then we have opening the heart, which is definitely heart chakra. Oh, yeah, in the fourth chakra, right? Yeah. In the fourth chakra. Finding your expression, the fifth chakra. Okay, so this is definitely moving through the chakras. We're getting that kind of overlap, which is really cool, and I'm excited to dive into that. Inner seeing, third eye for the Six of Wands. Yes. Opening to angels, Seven of Wands, that crown chakra energy. Really cool. So I wonder where they go with the 8. Dream time. Very pretty. 9 is tantric sexuality. Wait. 9 of Wands, sorry, yes. 10 is no self. And then we have our court cards. And so we have server, teacher, healer, and master. So we have the server of wands as the transmitter of light. The teacher of wands as spirit and matter. Healer of wands is vibrational healing. And the master of wands is temple of the goddess. So very much goes its own way through the minors. And this is going to be, I think, something you work with as its own system for sure. Now we have the swords. So here we're into the sword suit, and we have point of origination, and we still have that feeling of root chakra here, I feel like. Creative differences in the Two of Swords, and we have that feeling, perhaps of the sacral. I might just be seeing it. We'll see how it pairs out. Moving toward freedom in the Three of Swords. Very much, again, I feel like it's definitely going to its own system. The majors for sure lined up with Rider-Waite-Smith, but the minors totally their own way. Four of Swords, stabilizing mind. You can see the overlap, right? If you're looking for it, you can definitely see it. Holding the vision in the Five of Swords. And here we really see, I think, a deviation because, of course, the Five of Swords often carries a much different energy. I think this would be a deck to work with specifically for a very gentle approach to shadow work, as an example. I know that it may not be immediately visible, but something that's going to hold your hand a little bit through that process. And just personal growth or healing work. I feel like if I was really struggling, this would be a very gentle and loving, nurturing deck to work with. Structures for the journey, the Six of Swords. Rainbow Bridge for the Seven of Swords. Equanimity for the Eight of Swords. Trust walk. Oh, I love this labyrinth walk in the Nine of Swords. Particularly when we think about Nine of Swords and how it can relate to fear, this concept of a trust walk really works for me because, of course, when you're working on trust, you're facing your fear, right? You're facing your fear of being hurt or being left or lost. However you want to look at fear. Engaging with trust is engaging with the opposite of fear, right? Leaving the story, Ten of Swords. Finally letting it go, like moving away from the drama. Cutting away illusion is the Server of Swords, who is, of course, our page. Wait. Yeah, that's right. Server, teacher. Yeah, that's right. Okay. A little bit cutting away this scene, even though it's on foot, it reminds me of the Knight of Swords energy a little bit, but cutting away illusions as the Page of Swords does work. An inquiring mind for the Teacher of Swords does also work. Mapping the mind, the Healer of Swords. Reading the web, Master of Swords. This is so cool. So in my book, The Self-Worth Path, I actually have a whole section about the web and my view of a web and how it connects our past and present experiences. And this is what this makes me think of, is reading your own web, like really looking at where those connections are. That just goosebumpy, in a goosebumpy kind of way, like connects directly to that analogy that I was working with. Love that. Okay, so now we have the cups, the suit of the emotions, and we have dissolving into oneness for the Ace of Cups, which is this imagery, though. I feel like this is a deck that I might end up engaging with, almost like I engage with the soul cards in a way, where it's almost like a scrying deck. We'll see. I haven't worked with it yet. This is just kind of my first impressions looking through the artwork, but it just has that like spirit connection feel. I am such a tactile person that I worry about how thin the cardstock is and how it's going to feel to work with it, but I feel like this might be a deck I experiment with backing or something. I'm not sure. I don't want it to be sticky. If you've ever backed a deck and like with contact paper and trimmed it afterwards or something to like just let me know what your experience was like in the comments below. Like, let me know, is the deck sticky? Because I can't handle sticky. It's like a thing. I just can't deal with it. Which is why I've never backed a deck, because I'm worried they'll be sticky at the edges from the contact paper. If that's going to happen, I don't want to take the chance. So let me know. Have you ever backed a deck? What was your experience like? Was it easy? Hard? I want to know. Anyways, authentic connection for the Two of Cups. That super works. Like Rider-Waite-Smith even works. Receiving grace for the Three of Cups. This deck is like literally calming me down just to look at it. Do you ever have that experience where the artwork is just so soothing? Untying the mask for the Four of Cups. It's interesting because I actually wouldn't have put this in this spot. I might have put untying the mask in, I don't know, what card would I have done? Maybe Seven of Swords, perhaps? I'm not sure. Natural intimacy, the Five of Cups. Sharing support for the Six of Cups. Drama queen for the Seven of Cups. That super works. Human doing for the Eight of Cups. Instead of being a human being a human doing. It's just like a call back to yourself, right? Catch yourself when you're on that machine of life. We are doggo sitting, so you may hear a doggo bark in the background occasionally. Mental detour, Nine of Cups. Joyous flow for the Ten of Cups. Oh, the Page of Cups, attending to emotional needs. Yes. Teacher of Cups, this is our knight, exploring the inner landscape. These are so beautiful. I wish the images were consistent, because this would be really stunning trimmed. The Queen of Cups, the Healer of Cups, is healing the inner child. Like, oh my goodness. Abiding in love, the Master of Cups. Birth into form. So now we're into the discs or the pentacle suit, the earthly suit. Birth into form for the Ace of Discs is really cool. Balance in material life for the Two of 2 of discs. That's very, again, Rider-Waite-Smith overlap. Integrated work for the 3 of discs. So rather than collaboration necessarily, seeing it as integrated, a different way of working with that 3 energy. Manifesting home for the 4 of discs. Gosh darn, this deck is so pretty. Releasing stuck energy for the 5 of discs. Web of life for the 6 of discs. Incubation for the 7 of discs. Skillful perseverance for the 8 of discs. Instinctual wisdom for the 9 of discs. The great view. This is like very much big picture thinking to me. The 10 of discs, that higher perspective. So now we have the quartz and we have loyal friend, accurate for the page of discs or the surfer of discs. Passionate play for the teacher of discs. I hope I have these quartz right. We'll have to take a look in the book in case I got those wrong. Healing the planet for the healer of discs. And gracious abundance for the master of discs. So let's do a little zoom out here. And I'm going to do some shuffling on camera so you can kind of see how the cardstock looks. We'll probably take a look at the book, maybe do a sample reading. But let's first check the court cards and make sure that I didn't flub that up. So let's just see. It should address the court cards. Majors, swords, minors, court cards. Originally, they were pages, knights, queens, and kings. We've intentionally kept the titles for these gender neutral. Pretty good thinking. Let's see here. The 4 court cards are server, teacher, healer, master. Yeah, so I do have those in the right order. Okay, so here it says, the teacher embodies some aspect of the wisdom of a particular suit. The healer exerts a healing influence. The master is the most comprehensive expression. And the server expresses the impulse to help, whether in the mental, emotional, material, or spiritual arena. So they're looking at the minor arcana. Let's just go back a little bit here. So the swords are the mental realm. The discs are daily life and the structures that contribute to it. The cups are the watery world of feelings. And the wands is the energies of the chakras. So that chakra was really intended to be in the wands only, those associations. So let's do some shuffling. It is, again, a very thin, almost like, actually, though, well, it's not too bad. Like, it's, I almost wish it was a thicker deck, because I feel like it'd be a more satisfying shuffle if there were more cards. But it does tell you how thin it is when you see it like that thin, and it's a tarot deck. Because, you know, that's 78 cards, that card stock. This is probably like 280, maybe, GSM. Is what I would guess. So it's more of a slappy, it's not very satisfying to shuffle. Although I feel like it slides better kind of overhand. If you're very loose with it, it feels a little bit more satisfying this way. It feels a little bit more like cards this way. I feel like when I shuffle it, like when I riffle it and bridge it, it feels more like paper, less like cards. I don't know how else to say it. Okay, so let's just do a little sample read. So let's do my energy obstacle advice reading and see how I would work with these cards. Just intuitively, like without even diving into the guidebook, how would I work with these? So energy, freeing your expression, 5 of wands. So that's going to be like the throat chakra. Releasing stuck energy in the 5 of discs. That's 2 5s. That's really interesting. So definitely a shake up. And incubation, the 7 of discs, is our last card. I feel like I've got them straight here, but it's not really straight on camera, but there we go. So how would I read these? So energy, freeing your expression. So the energy is throat chakra energy. So whatever's going on is very much a communication issue or an issue with actually speaking your truth. That's what's going on at sort of the heart of the matter. The obstacle, releasing stuck energy. Something's feeling really bound up, really bogged down. And because I know this is the 5 of discs, I might also look to where are we sort of being very tunnel visioned about our situation, about our experience. And then finally, we have the 7 of discs in the incubation card as the advice card, which I would see this actually as take time out, like take stock of your situation, maybe get some other perspective, pull back a little bit, and then see where things could go. So I think those could read really, really nicely intuitively. I have a feeling that I might be more likely to use this for spiritual readings specifically, or for healing readings, or when somebody needs that sort of gentle, soothing voice. I feel like this is going to deliver messages in a really compassionate way. And it's kind of nice to have a deck or two like that in your collection where you can give messages really gently like that. Now I am noticing, as is common with like cardstock like this, a lot of like sort of wear, very light wear, and you can tell the deck hasn't been heavily used, right? But there's this like sort of wear or chipping, I guess you could say, along the sides. I think this deck would definitely benefit by being edged, but my concern would be any possible bleed into the cards. But luckily for me, there is a extra card here that just has some of the publication information. So this deck was first published in 2002, but I could use this card to sample edge with some different types of ink and see what goes. I have a feeling though that I wouldn't want to edge it until I know whether or not I'm going to back it. So I am really curious to hear your guys' backing experiences down below. If you've ever backed a deck, let me know. But I'm going to hit this with just a little bit of my herbal smoke here. So that, my friends, is the Tarot of Transformation. We do get a beautiful fan though, don't we? This deck looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to play with and to work with. I'm excited to reach for it, particularly, like I said, for healing work, for that sort of thing. I think it's going to be really great to have in my collection to reach for. I definitely think this would be great for spiritual growth readings specifically. And I do actually offer spiritual growth readings, so I may reach for this one for those type of readings with clients. We will see how it goes. But thank you so much for hanging out with me for this walkthrough first impressions of the Tarot of Transformation. And thank you to the lovely lady who traded with me. I really appreciate you. That was a great trade. I'm really pleased to have this in my collection now. And I'm curious to hear what you guys think of this deck. So please let me know in the comments down below. Do you have this? Do you want this? What are your thinking? Is your opinions, I guess, not what are you thinking of this deck? I'd be super curious to find out. So let me know. And remember to like this video if you enjoyed the walkthrough. Click subscribe if you are new here. Click the little bell to be notified of my future videos and my live streams. And if you want to book a reading, you can always do that over at supportivetarot.com. Thank you so much, and may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye, guys.